Welcome to the SIWIKE Podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE Podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with one of our new guests, Angela. How are you doing today, Angela?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
Awesome. So Angela comes to us with a background in psych and health studies and also in music and part of a record label that's up and coming. So we'll if you want to introduce and tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, and then we'll kind of rewind and talk a little bit about you as a kid and then the progress. So what are you up to these days?
So I'm currently still a student in my last semester of undergrad. So I'm just finishing it up this summer semester, taking 2 accelerated courses, and I should be done by June. And other than that, I'm a co-founder of the record label I'm in right now. It's called Symbio. And it's a record label in Toronto. We just launched it like last Friday. We had a launch party and everything. So yeah, it's official now.
It sounds great. So very, very new and looking forward to diving a little bit more into it. But before we get there, I'd love to hear a little bit more about Angela as she was growing up. So what was Angela like as a kid? What are some, maybe the earliest fond childhood memory that you might have?
I was a very loud and playful kid. Like I love,
Okay.
I love making jokes, and but I don't know, like at some point, I went really quiet. I think it was just, like societal enforcement, or maybe I misunderstood, but I went really quiet and I became really shy. So, like my life just sort of went differently from there, but I learned to sort of embrace myself more and just be myself. And I think from then on, I'm not as quiet anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, I was pretty loud and full of jokes. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'd love if you shared a little bit more about kind of that time. So about when did this quietness happen? So if you were loud and like making jokes, was this like when you transitioned into school, into high school, or earlier or later in your upbringing?
Yeah. So when I was in elementary school, I think that's when I became progressively more shy. Like, for example, like I have this really obnoxious loud laugh. Like when I was a kid, like it's so loud, like my neighbors could hear me when I laugh. So I love laughing, as a kid, but like Asian parents sometimes they're like they don't really want to disturb people, so they're like shh, like be quiet, like but they're not doing it to do any harm, right? Like they're only doing it because they're trying to be considerate of other people because that's the culture, right? So so I sort of suppressed myself over time, but it's not anything like traumatic, but yeah, it's just over time. Just learn to tone it down a little bit. So
yeah, I think it's some of those societal constraints where going to school, sit down, do as you're told, and follow what everybody else is doing. That's kind of the typical thing. Predominantly in the Asian culture, but everywhere actually, it seems that seems to be the case. And I'd love if you walk us through a little bit about now you said you're embracing yourself and now not as quiet. Like how did that happen? Was that more of a high school thing, a more recent thing, or when approximately did that take place, and then how exactly did that happen?
Yeah, it was more so like a recent thing actually. So I started taking singing lessons when I was 4 years old. My parents, they enrolled me to one of the best vocal schools in Jakarta. And I don't know if you know Alpha Sosoria. He's like one of the most influential Indonesian composer, like during his time. So he created a lot of like vocal schools in like all around the city, and I was enrolled in one of them, and I learned a lot about singing then. And I love singing. I love performing. But so over time, because of that shyness, I sort of like went away from it. And it's not even just that. It's So at one point I got like a tonsil, like one of my tonsils removed, or like both of my tonsils removed. So the doctor told me like I can't sing anymore. And then that sort of like stayed in my, I guess, subconscious mind. I didn't know how much it impacted me. So I'm kind of like, I can't really embrace that part of myself anymore. I had that understanding growing up. So yeah, that's so I don't even know what I like. Like I don't know what I can do. You know, I don't know how to begin to even embrace myself. So I became very, very shy, and I don't like to express myself because of all these things that happened as a child. That, thinking about it, it's not as traumatic as I thought it'd be, but like I don't know, like when you're growing up and you go through those things, like at the time it's like, oh, like that's crazy, you know, like I can't even do the things that I want to do, you know.
For sure, and it goes to show that when you're smaller, like small things seem bigger, and bigger things seems massive, right? So in this case, it sounded like you almost like literally and figuratively lost your voice, right? So in that, then you couldn't kind of speak out, and then eventually you took some time to find your voice. And I'd love if you walked us through a little bit of that, right? So as you were growing up, so tonsils removed, you now have this implanted thought that you can't sing, you don't know what you're doing, and all that sort of stuff. Then you grow up and you start to get into things like psychology and health studies. So what was the process to kind of get on that path?
Okay, so actually, sat there in like first year, like so first year of business, like, and I don't like, I'm interested in it. Like I love entrepreneurship right now. And I've always wanted to just, I don't know, I can't pay attention to class. I'd rather learn something about, like the way I see business is like it's application, you know. The reason why there's so many case studies is because it's about the application. How can you apply all those foundational knowledge that you learn in class to something more practical, you know? So I see business as something that you learn as you go, whereas psychology, which later I transitioned during the summer after first year, I transitioned into psychology because I thought, okay, this is something that I don't know anything about. Like, you know, it can help me get a better understanding of people, of like social situations, and just help with how I interact with the world, basically, and how I see the world. So I wanna understand these things, these like social cues and things like that, because you don't get taught that in school. You know what I mean? No. It's like so yeah. I just thought that's the class for it. So and I knew that I was gonna get into business anyways. Like I was gonna learn business like throughout my life, because I knew I wanted to be like some sort of entrepreneur. I just didn't know what the industry was. But yeah, that's just what my intuition was telling me. So I just followed it every single time. Yeah.
So to kind of recap, the thought was that you would always be a business person. You're like an entrepreneur at heart. So the degree, like you didn't necessarily need a business degree for that. You might as well learn something about like people and social cues and things like that. Because why not? I mean, as you said, they don't specifically teach that in school. So to take that as a course would be very helpful. Did you have any aspirations of like doing something with it, because you have psychology and health studies? So was there that aspect in the business sense, or is it really just to understand like human nature and behavior and things like that?
Yeah, it was mostly about understanding human nature and behavior, because I had no interest in going into clinical studies,
right?
Or anything or like research. After going through it, I was like, this is like, I don't like all the path that they're telling me to go, like get your master's in research, or like you pursue, you know, like all these things, like I don't want to do. Like I just want to understand things, because I like learning, like I like trying to understand things. Yes. I like the why as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of why, I'm wondering if you could share with us a little bit more on that transition from business to psychology, right? Because when people or students, kids, basically have to change degrees, parents might not be as open to that, right? So, what was that conversation in your head and with other people like?
Yeah. So the conversation I had with my parents was just, it's a very practical conversation. I just told them like I can't focus, and honestly, like I was just getting into in business specifically. I was gonna specialize in accounting, and accounting is basic math, but I have no interest in math, you know. And I was taking like first like calculus courses, which I can't pay attention for the life of me. Like I just can't pay attention, and yeah. So I just told my parents like I don't think I can keep going with this, and honestly, my parents they're pretty supportive of me, which I'm thankful for. Like they're always supportive. They're always saying to me like, as long as you know what you're doing, we'll trust you on that, you know. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just followed my intuition, to be honest. Like, but you know, my intuition always knows what it's doing. So yeah, that's
Cool.
basically how the conversation went. Other than that, yeah, I think that's how it went. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All right. And going back to that I guess the basis in business, was there a lot of influences around you where parents or other people were business people, other entrepreneurs around you, and that's where it solidified it, or where did this business and entrepreneurship route, where did that come from?
Yeah, yeah. Now thinking about it, like my uncles and my aunts, like they're all entrepreneurs. So my uncle has his own like accounting law firm back in Jakarta, and then my aunt, she sells clothes, so she makes she like designs her own clothes and she sells them, you know. So like it's just, I think it's part of the family, and both of them is like from my dad's side and my mom's. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. And I guess from there you went into school, you switched programs, and then you decided to, I guess, co-found a music label, which is usually a little bit different. Most students aren't necessarily down that path. Can you walk us through a little bit of how that path shaped up?
Yeah. So going back to the idea of like embracing myself a little bit more, I started. Well, I conquered my fear of like singing in front of people. And then I started meeting like these community of people, like like-minded people that are, that have the same intention. With what most of them are Asian, so they express like the difficulty in trying to make it as an Asian in the entertainment industry, right? Because there aren't a lot of representation in North America when it comes to like Asian, like creative excellence. There's like Asian excellence in general. Like there's obviously a stereotype when it comes to Asian excellence being that like Asians are good at math, Asians are good at school, Asians excel at academic and whatnot. But I've like throughout my journey, which I'm still walking in it right now, I realized there's a lot of like creative Asians, you know, like there's like we're not just good at like math, you know what I mean? And frankly, like I'm not even good at math, so it's like I'm still an Asian regardless. Like my brain just works differently, and that's something that's not well represented in North America. And eventually, it pushed us towards this path of creating a collective. It started out as a collective, like a creative collective. That focuses on showcasing Asian excellence. And over time, we became a lot more disciplined as people because we realized like we don't really have our, like it takes a lot to start things from scratch, you know, like you really have to organize your life. And along the way, we did lose some members because they just didn't have the discipline to want to organize their life as well, like this early on, right? Because it's a choice for everybody to like claim themselves as a founder, because being a founder is not just putting your name on something. It's actually building something. And yeah, so that's really how it began. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, and I would love if you walked us through maybe that first step. You mentioned that it started from conquering your fear of singing in front of people. So you alluded to before that you lost your voice. You had this thought that, okay, I can't sing and do that. And then the doctor actually saying that you will never sing again, right? That's a hard notion to overcome. So how did that happen? Was there a moment to say, you know what, I love to sing so much, I will try it, or would there be a thing where like, oh, I can't sing because it might rip my vocal cords or it might hurt my tonsils or something like that? Well, I guess your tonsils are gone, but what were like the conversations in your head along there once you started that path to saying, hey, I want to sing again, and I want to sing again in front of people at that? What was that process like?
Yeah, I just started surrounding myself with like singers, musicians, like other musicians, like guitarists, right? I would come to their rehearsal studio, like during rehearsals, like I would just watch them, and I would just like, once in a while I would like hold the mic. I just started like that simple. Like I started by holding the mic itself and then like talking in the mic. And then eventually I just started like singing in the mic, hearing how my voice sounded like, and I'm like, okay, it's actually not that bad. And like these are other people in there are other people in the room listening to me. So I'm like, okay, how bad could it be? Like if I just go do an open mic session, because there's so many like open mics in Toronto, right? Yeah. So, and it's not free, but like, it's low cost, it's like the same price as you would if you walk into a bar, or like maybe cheaper actually, but it's like it makes you want to, it puts you in that environment, it's a better environment than it would be if you were just like having a night out in the bar or just like, clubbing. But yeah, anyways, so I started surrounding myself with people, and that just, it's really the people, honestly. Like I realized it's really the people I surrounded myself with that divert me to this path that I'm in right now.
Sounds good. So what I heard from that is baby steps, really. It's something as simple as showing up, first of all, surrounding yourself with the people. And then I like what you said about like even holding the mic and then slowly talking into the mic and then singing to the mic. And so it was a slow progression. It wasn't like an overnight, okay, now I'm just going to sing in front of 100 people or 50 people or whatever it is. It is a step by step thing. And eventually it starts to build momentum. And I love what you said about the people, where I think the quote is, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So if you aspire to be a singer or whoever, well, you should spend more time with singers or guitarists or whatever it is that you aspire to be. Because if you're not doing that, well, then you will just end up being like you always are if you keep on hanging around with the same sort of people. So I think that's amazing. I'd love if you shared a little bit about that founding journey, right? So you're with some like-minded people. Now you got your voice back, and now you're singing in front of people. But I guess the collective didn't just start automatically, right? Or did it? Was it that simple to say, hey, we should just get together again? Like, what was the first official meeting or first unofficial meeting like or not like? If you could share a little bit of that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we would go, I think I think it's like November of 2022. Every week in November until like December, and even past that, like until the beginning of this year, like January, we would go to this creative, I don't know what they identify themselves as, but it's basically like a venue that you go to. It's called Object Studio. It's the address is 100 Symes Road. It's literally in the middle of nowhere, but a lot of creatives every weekend, like they would go to that place and they would just like network with people. They would they host an open mic every Sunday, and there's this group of artists. They're called Bitter and Broke. and they're a group of like Asian guys, and they're fantastic. But that's their thing. They host that networking event so that like-minded people could come together and just like be friends, you know. And over time, like it sort of started like this community of people that just know that like there's a bigger purpose than just to come to this like networking event, you know. It's like than just to be friends with one another, but there's like a deeper purpose that's driving us towards something, you know. So yeah, that's really how it started. And then over time we started picking up a lot of people from U of T, because we also we before that we actually we were a part of a school club, so we just sort of like took the members and asked them if they were interested in being a part of it as well. So it was sort of like a bridging between the Toronto, like U of T community, with the Toronto creatives, the local creatives that's like in the city. So yeah, it was sort of a bridging between those two communities, because a lot of students don't know much about this community. And the only reason why I know of this community is because I've known that artist since 2019. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. So again, sounds like a gradual thing where the theme of surrounding yourself with the like-minded people and actually showing up, because going in every week is a bit of a commitment, right? And it probably helps that you had some passion and interest in that. And I'd love if you talked a little bit about when we were connecting off air, you mentioned a little bit on the philosophies. So like the reason why you all get together and connect. So what are some of the things that kind of brought you together and helped you stay together?
Yeah, so I can start with why we named it Symbio, because a lot of people actually misspell it as like symbio, like symbiosis. Okay. And it is a reference to the word symbiosis. It's this idea of, well, first of all, it really began with, because the artist that started this entire thing, it was his idea in the first place. It's a Chinese character, and I know I'm not going to say it right because there's like tonation in Chinese, but it's a character Hua. So it's like, to me, what the character represents is like, honestly, I don't know how to explain it, but we found the best translation of the meaning of Hua in English, and to us that meant symbiosis. It's like it's this mutual. Okay, so the idea of symbiosis is kind of like the mitochondria, right? Like I come from a biology background, so this is like what I do. So so the mitochondria exists in the human cell, but before that they were their own organism, but they decided to exist within you know the cell to like help produce energy, right? So yeah, that's like the dumbed down version of it, but like that's the idea of symbiosis. It's like people existing together to move towards something like bigger than any of them are, you know. So that's what we aspire to be when it comes to the Symbio. We want to build this community where all types of creatives, you know, you don't really have to be Asian, you know. The whole point of making Asian excellence being the prime focus of it is simply just to share the cultural heritage of like Asian culture, you know. So it's just to spread that awareness that, hey, like this is what our culture is about, and this is how we contribute to humanity, you know. But at the end of the day, it's about just about being yourself and like and like working together to get somewhere, you know. So that's really how the name Symbio came about.
Great. And could you share a little bit about like the vision or what do you hope that this I don't know if it's still a collective or whatever you call it, what Symbio you hope it to be in the future, or I guess put the words in the founder's mouth. What do you hope that Symbio would be in the future?
So we just launched it as a record label last Friday. And for the next 3 years, what we're essentially going to do is distinguish ourselves as that, an independent record label. So we're doing, and we want to put a prime emphasis on community. And what we're doing with that aspect is we've decided to host more community events, kind of like the ones that we went to back when we were still like just a collective, right? But that was kind of like far, and it was in the middle of nowhere. We want to host it like in the heart of downtown, or like not the heart, like Little Italy or something, because that's where we usually host our events. And during the launch party, that's basically we had like showcases and also a DJ, so people have the opportunity. Sometimes people just want to like have fun, and sometimes people want to network, right? And we give them the freedom to do both in an environment where it is stimulating. You know, it's not like a business networking event, but
right.
you do understand that like there are people there who are serious about things and actually can get things done, and they have discipline to get things done. Because well, we know that because it was hosted by ourselves, right? And we're like a group of students who are trying to better ourselves through walking this journey of like being in Symbio and establishing Symbio together. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So obviously still early days, a lot of different events, I guess, planned in the near future, and more and more progress, hopefully, that we get to hear from you. And I'd love, as we start to wrap things up, is if you could share a little bit about your SIWIKE, the stuff I wish I knew earlier. What would you tell young Angela at various points in her life, in her career? I know you had a couple where you talked about like finding your intuition or finding your tribe, like-minded people, that sort of thing, even taking baby steps. We referenced those. So are any of those ones that you want to elaborate on, or any that you want to add in addition to that?
Yeah, so in addition to following your intuition, because it's so important to follow your intuition, is what I learned is, well, I wish I knew this earlier, is always embrace myself and just do what I love, like trust in my intuition to like always embrace who I am as a person. I think I would have been on this journey sooner, but I don't regret anything, because the one thing is I'm doing it right now for a reason. You know, I learned whatever it is I had to learn to get here. So yeah, it's just honestly to just do what you love, and don't, like, the moment you embrace yourself, things open up for you. They tend to, you know. Yeah, that's it really. It's a life is just about the process of embracing yourself, because that's kind of like unlocking like a level higher than where you are. And then in that sense, like things start to gravitate towards you. So like people, you know, these people wouldn't come to me if I didn't go through like a moment of silence where I had to reflect who I am. And you know, there was a period in my life where I lost a lot of friends, but honestly, they weren't really like my friends. So yeah, it's like a lot of things that I had to go through to meet the people that I'm surrounded by. And the people that I'm with right now is not always going to be the people that's with me like later on. And I'm going to be always okay with that, because it's just a process of growth, really. So yeah.
Sounds good. I think in that there is a message of obviously do what you love, but there's always a practical sense of that, where like it doesn't mean that you're quitting and moving out of your parents' house and just living out of a van to play music all the time. But it is, let's take an extra hour, an extra weekend, an extra whatever to start surrounding myself with these people and just validate, okay, I might think that I love this. I might think that this is me, but is that true? And then it sounded like that you were able to do that. And then week after week, open mic after open mic, this tribe kind of collected itself around you. And then, as you said, more and more people came in because you were trying to be who you wanted to be, not who your parents wanted you to be or other people around you wanted to be, which I think is great. And I think that relates again to that find your tribe piece and the like-minded bit as well.
Yeah. You know, doing what you love isn't easy. Like, it doesn't make your life any easier. Like, it doesn't, because for me, I never wanted, like, I don't really like going to social events anyway, but that's like part of what I'm doing, like what I have to do right now, you know, like, but I don't let my introvertedness to not make me do those things. Like, I don't, like, yes, I'm introvert, but also like I'm trying to get things done, you know, like, so I'm gonna put myself in an uncomfortable situation where I can learn. I'd rather do that and grow from it rather than just like staying stagnant in where I am and like not liking myself for being an introvert, for not getting things done. You know, I'd rather be efficient and tell okay later. Like, it's okay to fail. It's okay to like, it's okay to not be successful the first time. It's okay not to pull off a good performance, you know, at least you did it, you know, like at least you did it. Like, you have to give yourself that grit, like the opportunity, you know, because I'm still young. I'm only like 22 years old. So it's like, it's a learning curve, right? Like, everything I'm doing is a learning curve. And with Symbio, like, there are a lot of aspirations that we see Symbio to be, but it's really a test of time, right? It's a choice every single time that you're making. Are you going to get your life together? Are you going to learn time management skills? Because honestly, for me, that's one of the soft skills that I'm not really good at. But I'm using all the resources I have, like all these, you know, like these AI tools like ChatGPT. Like, it's been helping me out with organizing my life, you know, and it's there for a reason, you know, like, we should use these resources that are available to us, and there's so many resources available nowadays, so it's really no excuse, you know. It's about choice, you know.
For sure. And what I took from that is, if we talk about the tools, is at the end of the day, they're just tools, right? So you still need to learn, you still need to grow. Don't use them as a crutch and like outsource your life to AI, right? You need to make sure that you're making the conscious decision to that. But they are helpful tools in that. And then what you mentioned a couple of times now about like doing what you love. I'm actually reminded of a slightly different quote where, and it usually comes from like the Steve Jobs like commencement speech, where people think that he says do what you love, but actually he says love what you do, which I think is an interesting switch to that, where even though you're an introvert, you still can put yourself out in comfortable situations, because what you know will be on the other side is growth. And what you do love, the loving what you do part is, I know that I'm doing this so that I can grow, so I can learn, so I can further the mission and the value. So it's not necessarily doing what you love because you don't love doing it, but you can say, okay, I love what I do because this is progressing myself, helping me grow and getting better. So that's something that I took out of this. So I think that's a lot of useful SIWIKE, and I'm sure there's more to come. Obviously, you're 22 and still on your path, so there's a lot more to go through. Wondering if you could share a little bit about your future aspirations and where folks can go to connect with you if they want to do so.
My future aspiration, other than doing Symbio, one of the things I'm learning from Symbio is just how to use social media, you know, because when for some reason, when I got social media in the past, like, you don't really use social media for its like fullest potential, you know, like, you can do a lot with social media. You can definitely reach a lot of people. And I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of writing that I want to share with people. And like just wisdom based on what I've learned throughout my life. I think people can see value in it. And I want to share more of that on like Instagram or like TikTok, you know, maybe have like some sort of like personal blog. It's still in the works right now. Like, I'm still thinking about it, but so you can connect with me on Instagram. My Instagram is the first three letter of my name, so Ange, and then smiley face. And then on LinkedIn, I'm like, how do you share your thing on LinkedIn? Is it just my?
We'll definitely link all those in the show
Okay.
notes. So you can send that information, and we'll put all of that in there. But it seems like Instagram and LinkedIn is where they can best connect with you. So thanks so much, Angela, for sharing your story and the progress and I guess the genesis of Symbio. And we're looking forward to hearing more about your progress, and hopefully we'll have you back for a future episode.
Thank you, Luki. It was nice talking to you and being here. Bye.
Sounds good. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.